Touch back for Arfield. 1-0 Burnley. Scott Arfield. He's been threatening that recently. And all the Burnley players run to the Darwin end. Oh, what a goal! What a goal from Robbie Blake! Burnley's first goal in the Premier League is something very, very special.
Wade Elliott has that change of pace and he's got away from Montgomery. It's the path of McCann and the follow-up finds the net. What a strike from Wade Elliott! A bolt from the Clarets and Blue.
Oh goodness me! What a goal from Patterson! If that is to be the one that takes them to Wembley, you cannot argue with that. Pure quality.
Here goes Mike Conroy. Still time for a winner, maybe. John Francis! They came to York in their thousands. They're going home as champions.
I mean, if there's any justice in the world, Burnley would surely score from this corner. Swung right in there. Ball in there. Yeah! Michael Keane! Oh, that's justice! That is justice at the Amex Stadium. Burnley are level and deserve to be.
Hello everybody and welcome along to the latest episode of the Turfcast podcast pre-game show with me, Joe Redmond, ahead of this weekend's midweek clash. This week's midweek clash, that's better, against Stoke City, of course, at Turf Moor. Last time we played Stoke City at the Turf, we went fourth in the Premier League. How times have changed. Stoke obviously got relegated that year. We obviously got relegated last year, so it's now a championship clash. But you know, it's a game at home that I have some decent memories of. Of course, I've just mentioned the one there that I have a good memory of because we went fourth, and that was a season that we finished seventh, and obviously ended up qualifying for the Europa League qualifiers. We all had some fun though along the way, even if it was just 3 games. But then there's also some bad memories of it as well. I seem to remember. Do you remember the time when they had the lap? So we thought, right, obviously he had the really good throw-in. This is in about 2009, 2010. So we thought, right, we'll bring the advertising signs right up as legally as far as close to the pitch we can. But we left the gap in between some of the signs. They just exploited the gap running. They scored from it, 1-1-0. Memories, though, memories. But yeah, interesting game, this one. Stoke, they're not doing as well as I thought they would do at the start of the season. I've got a Stoke City fan waiting in the wings. I'll bring him in just a few minutes, but they are currently 17th. Some results have been a bit decent. Some results have been a bit crap. Their away form, though, isn't that horrendous. Their last 4 away games, they beat Blackburn at Blackburn. Cheers for that, Potters. Then they got beat at Reading, but, you know, they're third. So fair enough. Then they beat Hull 3-0 at Hull. Admittedly, they've had a few injuries recently, but still, that's impressive. And then holding QPR at Loftus Road. So maybe their away form might give them a bit of confidence. Like I said, I'll bring Andrew in just a few minutes. But just a bit of housekeeping, as we always do. Just want to point out, if you haven't already, can you sign up to the Fanslide app? Of course, we have the Turfcast TV table in there where we will be doing our fantasy football for this season. We'll be offering prizes along the way, as long as the sort of like the thing with Fanslide is still going, where we can still do the table. We'll always be doing sort of like prizes here and there, not every week, but here and there. And if you want to join the Turfcast TV Fanslide table, the code is FNCKZ. That is FNCKZ if you want to join it using our link. And then you will win a prize. Not if you join it, but like somebody who joins it using the link will win a prize. And there'll be certain weeks where people who win the Turfcast TV table, you have to use that code though to get it. The FNCKZ will win a prize. But just a quick reminder, Fanslide is completely free to play, but you can choose a pay-to-play option if you wish. This means you must be at least 18 years of age to register and play Fanslide. And if you do choose to play on Fanslide, pay on Fanslide. Always gamble responsibly and never bet with money you cannot afford to lose. One more thing as well. Just want to quickly touch on Cardiff because we didn't manage to get to do a full-time show after that. I was working on Saturday, so I didn't even get to watch it properly. I watched it in a perfectly legal way, obviously, on my phone and at work. I probably shouldn't have said that. Employees might see that, but anyway, it's a broadcasting company anyway, so I might get away with that. But yeah, I felt like me doing a full-time show on my own would have been a bit silly when I only watched it on my phone, sort of thing. I tried to get a few people on who'd been on the game or had watched it, but most people who come on were busy. Sam, who does it a lot, was busy. So I just felt, sack it. I'll just do a 60-second review, as I did. Leaving work and left it at that. But yeah, I was a little bit ill on Sunday as well. We were going to get Neil on, who you've seen on the channel, but I was a little bit ill. It was Neil's 40th birthday as well. So just a big shout out to Neil. Happy birthday, Neil. You had a good 40th. I was going to say that on the show, but then Neil was a little bit rough. I was a little bit ill. So we just ended up not doing it. But Sam, I'm going to bring you in just a second because we are going to start talking about Burnley against Stoke. But yes, Sam, hello. How you doing, mate? You okay?
Yeah, you've got the name wrong, Andy.
Sorry, I'm done. I'm just because I'm talking about Sam.
Good,
Sorry,
it's all good.
Yeah.
Don't worry.
It's Andrew or Andy from every step along the way. The Stoke City fan. It's not Sam, the Burnley fan. Of course, it's not. That would be stupid on the pre-game show. But Sam, apologies for that, mate. How are you?
I'm not too.
I've just called you Sam again.
Bad. It's all right.
We'll
roll with it. We'll roll with it.
This has been a calamity from the start. Like I said, I have been a bit ill, but I'm fine now, so I can't even use that as an excuse. I'm just an idiot today. But Andrew, we'll get going. Talk to me about your season so far, then, because as I said then in the introduction, I am a little bit not disappointed because I don't have a horse in your race, obviously, but I thought you'd be doing better than this. Of course, you've changed managers as well. Yeah. What's gone wrong so far this season? Because 17th isn't where I expect to see Stoke.
No, I'm very, very disappointed with the season. Obviously, we're not where we expected to be. I think I predicted at the start of the season for always to be around about the playoff places, and we're in more of a relegation battle than a promotion push at the moment. It's annoying. Injuries to key players keep happening, so it's been like that for the past 3 or 4 years, and we seem that we can't escape it. But like you mentioned, our away form has been better for us than our home form, which shouldn't be the case, but it gives me hope for the game tomorrow night.
Yeah, well, it's an interesting one because your away form is a bit better. Our home form is better. When we are at home, we do tend to win. There's been hiccups along the road earlier in the season. Draws at home to Hull, draws at home to Luton. 2-0 up against Blackpool and 3-1 up against Blackpool and throwing that away and drawing both of them. But recently, we seem to be able to turn the screw at home and get the win. But obviously, like you said, you do seem to be better away from home. Talk to me about your manager situation then, because of course you sacked Michael O'Neill earlier in the season, brought in Alex Neil from Sunderland, who formerly was, of course, a Preston manager. And I remember looking at him a couple of years ago thinking, oh, mind him at Burnley. So has he got better since he's come in, or is it still a little bit stuttering and muttering? What's the situation like?
Well, with it all starting, it was such an unusual time to sack a manager. 1 week left of the transfer window. You've given him pretty much all of it. You've given him the start of the season, and they've gone, you know what, mate, this isn't working. Brought in Alex Neil, which was a surprise to some of us, because obviously Sean Dyche was available, Slaven Bilic was available, who's now gone to Watford, who I don't want to speak of what happened when we played Watford at the weekend, losing 4-0 at home. But it seems like negativity's been taken away with interviews, like the pre-game interviews and post-match interviews. Alex Neil, when he says something, it's going to act out in the way it is. You never know who's actually going to be available. Like you mentioned when we played Hull, we didn't know Josh Tyman was going to be back till that team sheet was put out. So he makes all the oppositions guess. He doesn't know what's actually going to happen. But the one thing that hasn't changed is the play style. It's still the same 5-3-2 formation. Still the same, we're playing Tariq Fosu, who is either central attacking midfielder or a left winger at right wing back. So it's sort of like, we're using players in positions that shouldn't work. At the moment, I've said go 4-3-3 for the time being until, for example, Harry Souttar comes back fit, Josh Tyman comes back fit, 2 key players for us with our creativity, and then you can play the 5 back and then it'll work.
Yeah, you mentioned that the two playing styles haven't changed and they're both playing the same formation, but then you've gone on to mention injured players. You reckon that's all it is? They're just doing that because they're waiting for players to come back, and obviously Alex Neil's not been there that long, so maybe he's taking advice off number two or
Yeah.
upstairs.
Well, I can cut him a bit of slack. Obviously, it's not his team. Every signing that's in that team's Michael O'Neill's now, so it's another rebuilding. It's another slow process which you're going to have to go through. But I don't know. We've not seen a fully fit team for a very long time, and I feel like if that ever does happen, we will be in a better position than what we are. It just seems like at the moment confidence is low. The goals for the season have gone from promotion push to what feels like just surviving.
Yeah.
And we've had news of Joe Bursick, who was our number one goalkeeper. His dad tragically died, and he's pushing himself forward and he's trying to play, but a lot of players have got mental blocks, and when your goalkeeper's got the biggest one of them all, it just starts going downhill.
Yeah, of course, that does sound a bit sad, to be honest. But you mentioned there, you've touched on the formation. How do you actually play football, though? Because obviously, Stoke were always known as the team that are fit, similar to Burnley. You were just the originals, and we just did it after you. You'd fit, you'd rough a few feathers up. But do you still play that way, or do you try and play a bit more football now?
I don't even know how to describe it. It's sort of just try and pass it around the players and try and get it to the goal, but there isn't a set play style. When Josh Tymon's back, like I've mentioned so much, we like to attack down the left, but no matter what, we will always try and attack down the left, and it seems like that's the outlet. Lewis Baker, if you can get the ball to him, 25, 30 yards out, he'll have a go, but there isn't a set play style at the moment. It just seems to be, every player seems to be sort of playing for themselves, and there's no unity at the moment.
Yeah, why do you think that is then? Because outside looking in, my first of all educated guess would be because you've sacked a manager at a stupid time. If it wasn't working, it wasn't working, fair enough. But you've sacked him just as he's brought in all his own players. Then this new gaffer now, as you mentioned, doesn't have any of his own players. So do you reckon that's just because there's no identity there? Because he's not got the type of players that he wants to play his style of football. So that's why everyone's kind of playing for themselves now.
Yeah, we haven't really got an identity, and everyone's probably trying to play for a position on that field. But no, it's one of them. We haven't had an identity like we have when we're in the Premier League since we come down, really. And once we find it, I think we'll be all right. It's just a matter of when that identity is going to be found again. The one thing with our old play style of, hoofing it about, playing long ball, roughing a few feathers up, was it was boring football to watch. But I'd much rather watch that than what we're playing now.
Really? That's interesting.
Really?
Yeah. Fair enough. Because obviously I can relate to that because I saw Burnley play for so long. I was never one that would sit there and go, oh, this is boring, this. When you're winning games of football, nothing's boring because you want to win a game of football. Yeah. It's boring like how it was last season for us, and I'm sure it was in your last season in the Premier League as well, when you're getting beat every week and playing boring football. So it does seem kind of pointless in that sense. But yeah, that's interesting. Talk to me about some players then. Obviously, you've mentioned a few injuries. Is it, who's available that we should be looking out for that can hurt Burnley?
At this point, you don't have any idea on who is going to be available. Dwight Gale, obviously, we've bought him in. He's not managed to score yet. He's had 5 disallowed for offside, though. 4 of them are wrongly given for offside.
That's mad.
So we've checked it. Liam Delap hasn't set the world alight since he's come in.
I do want to talk to you about him, actually.
Everyone in the Championship wanted him, but...
And we really, the fans really wanted him. I don't think the club wanted him. I don't know. It doesn't seem like they do because they didn't really push a boat out or make any offers. But I went on your hashtag the other day and I did see that because when you got beat 4-0 by Watford, I was like, I'll go on and have a look here. And a lot of people were saying like, it doesn't play football. It doesn't suit your style. It's just not working. Might as well send him back to City. What's gone wrong with him?
Overhyped.
Yeah.
Is what I say. It's as simple as that. He's, seen as the next successor at Man City to potentially partner Erling Haaland up front. He's been brilliant in the under-21s and the under-23s, and when he's played, adult football for him. But Championship football just seems too physical for him. Yeah, it's way too physical. But other players who are key, like I've mentioned, Lewis Baker, if you can give him space 25 yards out, he'll have a go, and half the time he does put it in the net. We've got quite a few key players out injured, so I've mentioned Josh Tymon and Harry Suter already. I believe Nick Powell's out injured again, which is, a surprise. There's a saying we've got at Stoke, and which is if he wasn't as injury prone, he wouldn't be playing for us.
Yeah.
The only reason he plays for us is he has that many injuries. But another player who's sadly out injured at the moment is Jacob Brown, who's like a traction engine. He non-stop running. So already you've got those out. Jordan Thompson's got I believe it's the concussion, like what is it like? They have to have 2 weeks off or whatever. So that's 5 players already. So that's half a team of players, which can fight for a first team spot who are key for us, who are injured. And then other players such as, Will Smallbone, who promising at Republic of Ireland international, coming in from Southampton, similar to Lap, can't cope with Championship football.
Yeah. So what do you reckon is with them two? There's too lightweight, just too young, too inexperienced?
I think it's a bit of all of it. Like Liam Delap, I believe, is only 19. So already for him, like going from under 21s to Championship, probably one of the most physical leagues that you've got in the world.
Yeah.
It's just tough for him, and he's quick, he's energetic, he's a handful for defenders. But the one problem we've got is we're not clinical enough. I've got the stats up here that we had against Watford. On paper, Watford had 16 shots, we had 15, but we only had 2 on target throughout the whole game, whereas they had 9. We're not clinical enough, and that's what's making us lose games.
Yeah, see, I was going to ask you next about that Watford game. I don't want to walk up any old wounds, and I was pretty shocked to see you lose so heavily against them. Obviously, I know again they've just sat their manager and brought someone else in, so yeah, new manager bounce and all that. I get that, but still 4-0 at home against a team that have stuttered this season. I was shocked, and you just mentioned there you're not clinical enough, but surely 4 goals, is that a defensive issue as well? Like what went wrong in that Watford game is basically what I'm trying to ask.
A bit of everything. Like I've mentioned, key players. Once you take out 3 or 4 key players out of our team, we don't have enough cover as backups. Like I'm saying, we're playing blinking right winger at right wing back or a centre attacking midfield at left wing back. Like towards when it was the start when Michael O'Neill was in, we were playing centre mids at left back, which shouldn't happen. We don't have enough cover. Quality cover. We have cover, but for example, we're playing a left wing back at centre back at the moment to cover that issue, and it just seems that we're creating chances and we're having a go. We're just not accurate. It's like we see a chance on goal and we're just going to hit it, and whatever happens, happens.
Fair enough. That's interesting. But what's it like defensive with them? Because like I said, you conceded 4 against Watford. But other than that, when I'm looking through your results, there's never been a game where it's like you've conceded a lot that I could see.
Yeah.
I only went back a few weeks, admittedly, but I don't know. It just like against Watford, maybe they just punish you because they've got 3 very good forwards.
Yeah, it's not poor defensively. Ben Wilmot's won 2 Player of the Month this season. So back to back, which, doesn't really happen, especially for a defender. But the defensive players that we've got aren't poor. We brought in Aidan Flint, who hasn't set the world alight, but he's been that player for Harry Souttar to cover at the moment. Harry Clark, who has also been injured, finally coming back into the team on loan from Arsenal. Youngster and Connor Taylor, 6'7", who's going to probably partner Harry Souttar. It's not a bad defence at all. And the wing backs that we've got, Dujon Sterling, who's now come in on loan from Chelsea. When him and Timon are playing on those wing backs, and then you've got a solid defensive partnership, we'll be all right. It's just at the moment with injuries, which has been so apparent for us, we can't cope with teams which have got pretty much a fully fit front line.
Yeah, fair enough. One thing I do want to pick your brains about is, of course, when you came down from the Premier League, 4 seasons ago, I think it was now, you were the favourites to bounce back up. I remember you played Leeds on the opening day of the season, didn't you? And I remember, because I was working as a reporter in Leeds at the time, and everyone in Leeds was like, it's going to be a really big test against, a side that's going to be champions at the end of the season. That was just the mentality. Stoke will win the league. And I think you finished about 9th, 10th, something like that, maybe even lower.
16th.
16. See, what's gone wrong? Because obviously we are now in that position where you were relegated. No one's thinking we're going to be champions, I don't think, because obviously we lost all of our squad. But still a lot of people saying that, we should be there or thereabouts going back up. What went wrong? But why have Stoke never? Because you've never really been in the promotion picture, have you? Since you've been down, you've always seemed to be mid-table.
We've had little moments. We've had little moments. Like last season, we had a little moment where we were up there, but then injury strike and everything falls apart. But I look back at that team that we had for that promotion season: Jack Butland in goal, ex-England goalkeeper, Ryan Shawcross, Mura Martins Indy, Ashley Williams, Nathan Collins, who's now at Wolves doing brilliantly for him, for himself. Joe Allen in the team, Clucas, Charlie Adam, Darren Fletcher, James McLean, Bojan, Benica Phobie, Sam Vokes, Mam Juve, Peter Crouch. It's not a bad team, but what we found out was that with a similar situation to now with the new manager, everyone was playing for themselves. A lot of players had that thought of, I'm too good to be in this league, which meant they would take a lot more risks in their play in a bad way, and everything would just fall apart. I believe we were bottom of the league. We were bottom of the league for a good 6-7 months, and then out of the blue we managed to survive. And we've never recovered from that.
I felt that season you never recovered from that Leeds game, because I think it would be also first game, weren't it? I think they won 2-3-0, and I felt like that season you never recovered from it, and then you've never recovered from that season, really.
No, it's really tough that we haven't recovered from it, because I'd have loved to, have bounced straight back into the Prem, have the money that we have, and then start spending in a sensible way. But I don't know what went wrong that season. It just seemed that everyone had us down to win it, and we were, oh yeah, easy. Look at the team on paper.
Yeah,
it's probably the best side the Championship has ever seen. But when everyone's playing as themselves and no one wants to play as a team together, it's not going to work.
No, and it didn't. Fair enough. I do like to ask opposition fans what they think of what Burnley have done, because we lost a lot of players. We lost Nathan Collins, for example, who went to Wolves, James Tarkowski, Ben Mee, Nick Pope. That's an entire back line. That if that back line is in the Championship, that is just we're not going to concede a goal.
You're not going to concede, mate.
Exactly. And then you're losing the likes of Wout Weghorst, Chris Wood, obviously at some point last season as well. I think there was 12 senior players sold, people losing contracts, Eric Peters, Phil Bardsley, that sort of thing. But we've brought in a new manager, completely different style of play to what Sean Dyche played. We've gone from ruffling feathers, booting the ball up to Chris Wood and Wout Weghorst and trying to win flick-ons and then scoring that way and scoring set pieces, to now playing possession-based football, passing it around the back, waiting for gaps, trying to break the lines, that sort of thing. So do you think it's too much, or did you originally think it was too much of a difference from the old style to be able to succeed? And what do you think of it so far?
Well, I watched the opening game of the season when you played Huddersfield, and I was like, this isn't the Burnley I know. Obviously, Maddison scoring from where he did was a brilliant goal to open his campaign. But your recruitment's been brilliant, like you say. For example, Scott Twine. Everybody wanted Scott Twine.
Yeah,
everybody.
He's not played yet.
I know, but once he gets into your team, you'll be even better than what you are now. But the key players that you've let go, like Maxwell Cornet
as well, yeah,
Cornet brilliantly. But the players you've let go, you've sort of managed to replace with Championship level of them.
Yeah,
and it's like, say for example, you've let go of a left winger, you've brought in a left winger to replace them. What it seems in relation to us is we've let players go and they're not recruited in those positions. Mm-hmm. We've just seen, oh yeah, we want that player, we'll bring him in. But your play style's improved. I think you're one of the teams with the highest possession in the league, held.
Probably are the highest, I guess. So that stat, if someone's looking at that stat now and I'm wrong, please don't message that, you dickhead, you're wrong. But I would imagine that we are the highest, or there'll be another team. I think Norwich are quite high as well. And
Norwich are quite high, and then we've got them in a few weeks. It's a tough run for us at the moment, but nah, it's going to be really tough for us, especially midweek. Spirits are low at the moment, and midweek football.
That brings me on nicely to the next question of what sort of game are you expecting? Not necessarily what score are you expecting. Like, how do you expect the game to pan out? Like, how do you think your style, for one of a better word, because you can't really describe how you play at the minute because you can't see an identity, but how do you think that will do against a team who wants to keep the ball, who will be patient with the ball and will try and break the lines? Do you think you can have some joy against our style, or do you think we'll have some joy against you?
You'll have a lot of joy against us. I'm telling you that now. It seems that our wing backs push extremely high, which leaves three not very quick centre backs very exposed. For example, you've got Lewis Baker and Josh Laron, who will always come back on defence, but we've not got a quick team, and that's one thing that really doesn't help with our play style. It's going to be extremely tough for us to break through your defense because still your defense now is still very, very good. I mentioned at the start of the season I'd have loved to gone to Burnley and seen Nathan Collins and Taylor Harwood-Bellis together because obviously they both played for us. But I feel like that's one thing that we can exploit because we know how Harwood-Bellis is as a defender.
Yeah. It's interesting you mentioned all the lack of pace there because I think the one thing our forward line does have, apart from Jay Rodriguez, is quite a lot of pace. You've got Nathan Teller. He's genuinely he's so fast. There's been so many times where we've just not decided to play possession football, which is it's weird because sometimes and I can't remember who said it. I think it was Garros, one of my friends who has been on the podcast before, said teams will set up in a certain way, expecting Burnley to start passing it out from the back, and all of a sudden, Muric will have it, and he'll just aim for Teller. I think we've scored a goal against West Brom this way. Just aim for Teller, who gets in behind the defence with his pace. And if you're saying that your defenders aren't very fast, then that could be something that we could exploit. And you got Benson, who's pretty fast as well. Vitinho is pretty fast. Jay Rodriguez not so fast, but he's no slow coach. So is that something that worries you slightly? I know you mentioned it already, but if we've got players with the pace of Nathan Teller who can get in by just one long ball upfield, and you're saying you've got three very slow centre backs, it sounds like something we could exploit because we exploited it at home against Luton and we exploited it away against West Brom. So maybe something it will be looking that we'll be doing again.
You could probably exploit it like against Watford, Keenan Davis, Sema and Sarr. Three very quick players, three very quick forwards who all scored against us. We can't deal with pace at the moment, but with Harry Souttar, like I've said, when he comes back, he's not the quickest centre-back in the world, but with him being 6'7", he's able to catch up to them.
Yeah.
And without him, it just seems like we're sort of missing in that regard.
Do you think you'll look at the result against Watford, see that you got done by pace, be a little bit worried by the likes of Nathan Teller and Benson, and just think, let's sit back a bit? Do you think you might just try and stink the place out a little bit and frustrate Burnley, maybe hit us on the counter-attack?
That's one thing Alex Neil's good with, is he can change play styles at the flick of a switch. And I feel like coming up against a team like Burnley, who have got a very similar forward line to Watford in the way that they have got pace, they've got a bit of height to them, they've got a bit of physicality, and for example, Ashley Barnes and Jay Rodriguez, he'll learn from that and probably say, you know what, sit back a bit. If you can, try and play that offside trap, because if they make a run and they've not played the ball and we can get in front of them, be fine. But if they do, manage to stay onside, we're a bit screwed in that regard.
Yeah, fair enough. Well, it's one of them things you've got to look to try and learn your lessons from the mistakes you made in the last game. I think that's one of the problems that we haven't done at the minute. When we're winning 1-0 and we haven't put the game to bed, we do tend to sit back, and our team at the minute doesn't seem to have the experience to be able to see out a 1-0 lead. It happened away to West Brom when we conceded a 96th minute equaliser. Then again at the weekend, obviously a 90th minute equaliser against Cardiff. So hopefully, well, for your sake, not for our sake, that you have learnt from their mistakes. But just one final one from me before we get going. Predictions then for the match?
I said 3-1 Burnley.
3-1.
I'm not confident at all. I'm really not.
Yeah, I'm going to go 2-0 Burnley. I just feel... Well, I don't know. Your away form does worry me slightly, I'll be honest. Yeah. I think you've shown you're capable of getting a point or even nicking a win. So I wouldn't be the biggest shock in the world if we did draw again. But at home, we do seem to be getting a bit more joy over the last few weeks and months. So, yeah, I'm going 2-0 Burnley. But, mate, it's been a pleasure. Do you just want to let everyone know where they can find you and where they can find your podcast if anyone wants to see some Stoke City content, especially over the next coming days, because there'll be Burnley stuff on there?
We're on Spotify. We're on pretty much... Spotify's the main one, but we're on all your major streaming platforms. You can obviously find us on Twitter as well with the @ Every Step Along. We post Stoke City news updates and things like that. But the Burnley preview for us is out. And then I believe we're going to record tomorrow for the Sheffield United preview at the weekend. So the last 3 games we've had haven't been, very nice to us.
Yeah, and it's difficult. To be fair, I know what you mean. It's difficult when you've got to do podcasts and you've just been beaten 4-0 and you've got to go on a podcast and talk about it. I myself, why have I started a podcast?
Yeah, that's what I was like. I messaged Mike and Dan, the other two, in the group chat we got, and I was like, do we have to record tonight? Do we have to talk about it?
Yeah, well, hopefully your game on. Who are you playing on Saturday? Are you playing on Saturday?
Sheffield United.
Well, mate, hopefully you beat them because that'll do us a favour.
Top of the league, I don't think we will, mate.
Hopefully you beat them, do us a favour, and then you can have a good podcast. But thank you very much, Andrew, not
right,
Sam.
mate.
Andrew, for coming on the show. It's been a pleasure, and I'm sure we'll get you on before the away fixture later in the season.
Cheers, mate.